All right. Mine's going to have a lot less high-level detailed information than those past few. One thing to keep in mind is everybody has note cards in their seats, so if you have thoughts or questions that have come up to this point, I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes you have a burning question. By the time you're done with it, you're like, what was I thinking about? So jot it down, make notes. All right. So my talk is going to be pretty quick. We've noticed in Lemon the past couple of years that liquid fertilizer is just becoming more and more of a volume product that we're trying to push out of this 6,000 gallon tank plant that we have. And a little background information is I've had a couple customers kind of push us and me on, the state of our plant and where things are, and that we need to get on this liquid bandwagon. And part of what makes that difficult is because we're in South Dakota, building up that plant has a lot of regulatory strings along with it, with containment and things of that nature. So it's made it difficult for us to increase the size of our plant in town. And so thinking outside the box, we felt like maybe the answer isn't increasing our capacity in town. Maybe it is helping our customers increase that capacity on farm. That way, we can direct ship loads of liquid fertilizer, potentially cutting your costs in the long term because we're not having to pay for an upgraded facility. So, the tank program. This is kind of where we were thinking how we could try to get some of this capacity in the country. Step one. So there's different tank programs, some of which have leases involved and a lot of kind of not straightforward practices of how that tank gets paid off or how the customer gets it on farm, whose tank that is, if it's the elevators or the growers. So we felt that the first step was that the customer buys the tank, then it's theirs, and that's where it sits. So we priced out a couple setups, but what seems to work for most of the growers of the scale around here is a 3,000 gallon tank setup. And this is more of a liquid starter situation, not a 28% where you're going through a lot of volume. And what we've found is these 3,000 gallon tanks, if you were to get 6,000 gallons of storage in 3,000 gallon tanks, it's less than getting 5,000 gallons in a 5,000 gallon tank. And that comes down to, I guess, the thickness of the tank and how they're built and everything. So it's kind of a nice idea that you can just tag these tanks on as you need it and as your volume grows, or if you have different needs for the tanks. So the one we spec'd out is, these are ballpark prices, 3,000 gallon black poly flat bottom tank, 6.5 horsepower Honda pump, cone and recirculation. Recirculation is important. And a cone if you want to add some fancy stuff like some of those micronutrients Dan was talking about. And then also we thought it was a good idea to have it be capable of running at 3-inch. If you're taking in a load or if you want to move things out, it just seems like the world is going to 3-inch. You can always neck it down if you want to. So this setup comes to about $7,600. Okay. Step 2, buy some fertilizer. So XLR rate is a low, high ortho, low poly starter fertilizer that we've been running for a couple of years and had good success with it. I think it's 723.5 or okay. So it for a high ortho product, it's still pretty high with the phosphorus level. Not 1034, but still, not some of these low use low P products. We think this is kind of the best of both worlds, and we're planning to batch it in with a little bit of zinc, because as we go through all the soil tests every year, most soil tests are below 1 part per million of zinc. If you look at your soil tests from this year, I would venture that probably 80% of your fields are below 1 part per million of zinc. And if you are below that, then you'll show a economic response to zinc in your starter. So once you buy the tank and you buy the fertilizer, then we calculate a rebate. And this rebate, it happens on the invoice. So essentially what's happening is we take that cost of that fertilizer and we're reducing it to a level that will pay for your tank setup in X amount of years. And the reason we're doing this is, obviously multifold. We can't do a lot of business with 6,000 gallons of capacity at our location. So we have to add capacity in the country, and that limits the amount of times we're touching the product. It also helps you guys get things done out in the field, because you don't have to tear down, traipse into town, and come and get liquid pumped onto your rig. The other thing is that, if you guys are good customers and doing this tank program, then we want to try to take care of you and build these tanks for you. So one scenario that really pencils out pretty easy is 600 acres of corn. This is just a number, because at 5 gallons per acre, it works out to around 3,000 gallon storage. So you have 4.75 gallons of XLR rate, a quart of zinc, and with the tank buyback program at 4 years, that's $1,900 over 4 years, pays that tank system off for you. So felt like 4 years was a pretty good number. Now, if you have a higher volume, that could pay off in less time. If you have less, we could pay it off over a little bit more time. It's all tailored to, your usage, your situation. It's a formula that we figure out. It can vary a little bit because of the cost of fertilizer and the percentages that go to the payment, but in any case, should be right around there. So that's the tank program. Thank you.